Over the years, many video games have touched on the subject of grief, each in their own different ways. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, Rhyme, What Remains of Edith Finch, and even the 2018 God of War all look at grief through different lenses. But they all touch on the same shared hurts, the same stages of processing the devastating hole left behind when someone you care for passes on. The newest of these is Tales of Kenzera Zal, a game envisioned by the actor Abubakar Salim, who lost his father. He has said in interviews he wanted to make this game specifically as a way to share and process the journey and feelings that he was going through, and to honour a love of the medium that he shared with his father. It was released at the end of April 2024 as part of the PlayStation Plus Extra Catalogue, and I thought I'd give it a try, as I love games that attempt to evoke emotions, and I really like Metroidvanias. So let's look at my journey to get the Platinum Trophy in Tales of Kenzera Zal. Tales of Kenzera Zal opens with a young man named Zaberi grieving. His father has passed, and he isn't ready to say goodbye to him. To help him, his mother gives Zaberi a book his father had been writing before he passed on, to help his son with the feelings he knew he would be struggling with. In this book is the story of Zal, a shaman who has also just lost his father. Zal, unable to accept this loss, makes a bargain with the god of death, Kalunga. If Zal can capture the three great spirits that had denied Kalunga, then the god of death would return Zal's father to him. Perhaps intrigued by Zal's spirit and determination, Kalunga decides to journey with Zal as he goes about this task. As the story progresses and the two talk, Zal will often share stories of his father, of the lessons he taught his son or the experiences they shared together, and the way that this happens is one of the things I like most about this game. It's so open about what it is trying to say, not showing grief as a metaphor or through different imagery or even by progressing through levels named after the stages of grief. It's just showing the thoughts and feelings of one man dealing with the loss of his father. An example of this is, as you explore Kenzera's locales, you can find large trees that Zal can meditate under. Mechanically, these increase your health, but narratively they are so much more. They are named reflections, and they are places that Zal can do just that. At the first one you find, Zal shares a story of his father taking him to meditate under these trees, and how much Zal didn't enjoy it at first. And as you continue through the story and find more, you see and hear more stories about this life. These moments are used to show the player, and Zaberi who is reading this story, to see where Zal is emotionally and mentally. There's one where Zal sits down to meditate and quickly says, "I can't do this," and gets back up. It's such an honest depiction of what losing someone feels like that it took me by surprise, and there's never any judgment for how Zal feels, with Kalunga only offering comfort and sage wisdom. The game is full of moments like this. Each of the bosses represent different forms of grief and how these emotions can take form, and highlight that in the end, the only thing that we can do is accept the people that have died are gone and try our best to move forward without them. If it's not obvious, I really like the story being told here, and even though there was so much more exposition than you would normally find in a Metroidvania style game, I think it works really well. There was also a lot of lore and world building outside of the main narrative that I really enjoyed as well. There are echoes that you can find that tell short stories about the characters and creatures of the world, and each enemy and power-up comes with a codex entry that gives some background information about the shaman who wielded the power first that Zal is learning from. All of the stories here are inspired by Bantu mythology and folklore, which is something I found really interesting. This inspiration permeates the artistic style and locales of the game as well. From the Afro-futurist city that Zaberi lives in to the African-inspired locales that Zal explores, it's such a unique and interesting setting that I don't see enough of with games, and I wish there had been more of it to actually explore, rather than just walk through it. In my opinion, there are two important components that make a good Metroidvania. The first of these is exploration, the process of filling in the map, discovering new areas and seeing how they fold in on each other and link up to make an interconnected world. Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of my favourite games, and I love filling in that map, even now, and then doing it all again in the inverted castle. Not knowing where the exit you choose will lead, running into barriers that you aren't equipped to overcome quite yet, but knowing that you will come back later to do it. The satisfaction of remembering there was a room that had a door that you couldn't quite jump to when you first went there, and then you go back and you make that jump and there's a hidden upgrade or a weapon down there, is my favourite part of the genre. Alongside this is movement. Movement in a Metroidvania has to feel smooth and fast as you rush around the map, because you do so much backtracking to and fro between different routes. Dashing, double jumping, then dashing again before sliding under a small crack between the floor and the ceiling. This is something that the Metroid series is amazing for. Controlling Samus is always fun, and running through rooms you've already been through is really boring, because the act of just getting through the rooms by sprinting, jumping and screw attacking your way across them feels so exciting, and it becomes half of a game in itself to see how fast you can get to your destination. Tales of Kenzera, despite its great backdrops and settings, falls short in its attempt to hit these goals. Movement is fluid and fast most of the time, and you do unlock new traversal abilities as you go, which you do in most Metroidvanias. But the problem is, these abilities never felt quite as exciting or as fun as the abilities you get in other games. Part of this is because you start with quite a lot unlocked to begin with. Zao starts the game with the ability to double jump, dash, wall jump straight away, and because of this, the abilities you get rarely make it more exciting to move than it was at the beginning. You unlock abilities to fling yourself from points in the air, like in Ori, or glide slowly, but all of these abilities are there to help you get through obstacles, and these obstacles are few and far between most of the time. It rarely felt like all of these abilities were coming together to be used in any real difficult manner, with the exception of some really well-designed chase sequences that push you to use all of the abilities you have, often in quick succession. Outside of these exceptions with the chase scenes though, you never feel the sense of increasing momentum that I felt with games like Metroid Dread or the Guacamelee games. In fact, this is my biggest issue with the game itself. Even with all the power-ups and abilities, Kenzera rarely gives you a reason to want to use them. When you enter a new part of Kenzera, the map reveals itself to you almost instantly, and you get a sense very quickly of where the game has hidden its collectibles or challenges. You can spot instantly the looping section of the map where you know a traversal challenge will be, or the little outcropping off to one side where an echo will be waiting for you. This took so much fun out of the actual exploration of the map, and there was no joy of the discovery that makes up some of the best parts of this genre. The game feels like it's always nudging you forward, so much so that it rarely even puts up blocks that you'll need to return for. I think every area had at least 2 blockades that you can't immediately get through when you find them, but with one exception, they are overcome by the ability you find in the same area. Only one time, I think I had to go back to an area to use a power-up I'd received in a different one. I found myself being able to get 100% completion of a zone in most cases before I'd beaten the boss for the area. Maybe this was part of the story the game was trying to tell, that you need to move forward through your grief, but I'm not sure that was it. I just found it disappointing, considering how well it started with Zao having such great movement abilities to begin with. Combat feels the same too. It starts off feeling fluid, smooth and fun. Zao has 2 masks that he can switch between at the press of a button. A sun mask which focuses on melee attacks and quick combos, and a moon mask which has ranged abilities. You dance between these 2 masks depending on the enemy types you face, the distance you are from them, but combat doesn't really change from there. You can earn experience as you defeat enemies that you can use to buy combat upgrades, but none of these made combat feel meaningfully different or interesting, and there aren't even that many enemies in the game to mix things up either. Combat does get more difficult as you progress for sure, but this is done by throwing more enemies at you or giving them shields that regenerate if you don't do enough damage in time. It was rarely frustratingly difficult, but it did venture towards repetitive, especially in the combat challenges where you fight wave after wave of monster. These gripes that I have would be more of a problem if the game wasn't actually pretty short. It took me a single playthrough and it was only 12 hours long. The game itself is pretty easy, with only a few of the traversal challenges taking me more than the single attempt. There are no missable trophies in the game, and although there are quite a few collectibles to get, as I mentioned before, none of them are really hard to find or even out of the way. Like most Metroidvanias though, you will need to explore 100% of the map to earn the platinum trophy called Whole Again. Firstly, you will need to find all 6 of the reflections that I talked about earlier, the trees where Zao increases his max health, for the trophy Know Thyself. You will also have to find and complete all of the challenges around the map. Some of these are traversal challenges, challenging you to use your abilities to get through an environmental puzzle. These reward you trinkets that you can equip to Zal that will give you small combat boosts, and finding all of these trinkets gets you the Art of Trinketry trophy. The other challenges are combat trials, of which there are 3 with 3 levels of difficulty each. These involve fighting waves on wave of enemies, and completing each difficulty gives you a different reward. The easiest one will give you an additional trinket slot, and earning all of these gets you the Perk Up trophy. The intermediate difficulty gets you an extra bar for your spirit gauge, which you will need to earn all of them for the Soulful trophy, and the hardest difficulty just gives you experience, which you need to level up all of the skills that Zal can learn. Once you have mastered all the skills, you will earn Shaman of all trades, and once you have beat all of the combat trials, you will earn a Warrior's Way. Lastly, for collectibles, you will need to find the 32 echoes that are not particularly well hidden around Kenzera's map. This will earn you Listen and Learn. There are a couple of miscellaneous trophies that are worth remembering just to make things a bit easier for yourself as you play. First, you'll need to kill 4 enemies in one go with the special super moves that Zal can use by spending 2 bars of his spirit gauge. When using the Sun Mask, you'll need to wait for enemies to get close to you and then activate it, as it has quite a short range but it does hit quite high vertically. This will earn you the I Am the Sun trophy. For its opposite, the I Am the Moon, is actually much easier to get. You just switch to your Moon Mask, activate the attack, and make sure you catch 4 enemies in the horizontal blast, and the trophy will be yours. The last trophy to look out for is Quick Draw. This requires you to buy a skill upgrade from the Moon Tree that lets you do a quick reload of your ranged attacks. You do this by pressing the Quick Attack button in the highlighted part of the bar that will appear when the shots are recharging. This will reload your ranged attacks much quicker, and if you do this 10 times, you'll get the trophy. The remaining trophies are all unmissable and story-related ones that you shouldn't have any trouble getting. Tales of Kenzera Zal is a better than average Metroidvania game, and as disappointed as I am in that fact, it is elevated by its story, world building and characters. Its exploration of grief and the journey it takes to get through the pain of loss to acceptance is so much more interesting and in-depth than the exploration of its map, but sometimes that is okay. I still enjoyed my time with the game, and it was a touching story that I think anyone who has been through loss will resonate with. I just hope the studio improve the game part of the game next time, and make a map worth exploring every inch of. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope it gave you a good idea of what to expect if you are planning to go for the Platinum Trophy in Tales of Kenzera Zal. Let me know what your thoughts are on this game, and if you have any other games to recommend like it in the comments below, and please consider subscribing if you want to see more videos. And until next time, happy hunting.